So this is so one of the things that we tend to do when we're putting our characters through the ringer and making life miserable for them is we tend to hold back. We like them. We don't want it to be too bad. But the weird thing about the story is that the bigger and bolder and worse something can be, the better, because it really forces our characters to do something and to behave, and that's where we get to learn about them. That's where we see the growth, and so everything needs to be a bit bigger than what we would normally think. So bold as brass, and this forces our characters to do stuff that they might not otherwise do, and this shows us what they're made of. So when we're talking about character development, what we're really talking about is helping them to be not boring. So like if we're setting up the starting of a story, and our hero, our lead character, is going along doing their normal life stuff, and suddenly something happens, if that incident isn't big enough to push them out of their comfort zone, they're just going to ignore it and continue with their boring lives, and then you can say the end. Nothing's going to change. But part of what makes a story is people change, is our characters have to grow, they change. And if they don't, well, I certainly our main character does, and so that's why everything needs to be big. So let me ask you a quick question here about overcoming boring characters, because we have encountered a few in our days, whether in stories that we've read or in workshops like this, we've encountered some characters that just seem to have everything figured out and they're just doing their thing. And then as a result, they are boring. So how do we make, just in general, how do we make characters interesting? How do we do that? Yeah, it's usually this big thing, right? This is the thing they must overcome in the story, right? So if my flaw is lack of courage, I'm going to be given all kinds of opportunities in the story to be courageous. And I'm going to do everything else that I possibly can before, coming to realize that the only way to defeat the dragon and rescue the princess is to gather courage and do it. Yes, they have odd interests. Yeah, make them odd. They don't just sit in their lazy boy and watch Netflix every night. They do weird things. They have odd hobbies. And yeah. So that makes them interesting. What else? What else would make them? So maybe things like some odd physical attributes. Really tall, really short, tattoos, accents, right? Whiskers and tails. Yeah, something physical, and the physical thing is really simple. It's really simple to do. Just to give them something. So these are all like things that we can look at when we're trying to figure out how to make our characters interesting and setting them on a path towards some kind of goal that they're on. So with that kind of thing in mind, like we don't want to be boring. Let's look at a few elements of characters and how they get developed, or how we develop them. First of all, different characters serve different purposes. So the key ones, like the viewpoint ones, these are our main characters, right? The hero or the lead, the mentor, which could be some helper or confidant, and then the bad guy, the opposition. Those are the three main characters. So these three characters need to have certain things in order to really bring them to life. Others can be secondary characters, like the guy who serves coffee, and or some underling that happens to be around. They're usually flat. They don't need a lot of development. They're just there. But we can also make them a little bit interesting if we want to give them some kind of physical trait, makes them stand out. But it depends how often they arrive in a scene. If it's just some guy, giving you your Big Mac, no one's going to care about them. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on them. The big ones are the viewpoint characters, the hero, the helper, and the opposition. Those are the big ones. And so let's look at, so the first thing to consider is their motivation. So all of these characters are motivated by something. They all want something. So your character's life will never be the same because of the story. So this is like the hero, right? The heroes, the lead character goes off and they're leading their normal, boring life when suddenly something happens and that changes their life. It's so big and that they cannot ignore it. And it's going to change their life forever. So the story you're writing is changing them. Okay. And it depends on two things here. First, the character wants something. And second, decides to go after it. So two things. So, and without both of these, the character becomes boring and the story crumbles. So he wants something. Oh, I really want to get that promotion, let's say, I don't know. I really want to get that promotion at work, but doesn't do anything about it. That's a big bag of yawns. That's just, blah, blah, blah. It's what we all do every day. Nothing special about that. But if the guy really wants that promotion and goes and does stuff to get it, improves himself or engages in shenanigans, undermines the competition, whatever it might be, then it gets interesting. So these two things, the character who wants something and decides to go after it, that's what brings the story to life. And that's focusing on motivation. So when we look at, this is why we throw huge obstacles in front of them, make them squirm, force them to adapt or die. That's pretty serious. Huge consequences of their actions. Make our good guys bad and our bad guys good. This is why we do this stuff. It's to make them all interesting. So consider these three, right? Character motivation, the key traits, and their role in the story. Three things. So this is for our viewpoint characters. What motivates them? What are their key traits, their strengths and weaknesses? And what role do they play in the story? So if we look at these, for each of them, before we even start writing, when we're just plotting or thinking about characters or a story idea, this is the time when we should be thinking about this. What do these people want? What's the external goal? Okay. What are they after? Okay, something happens, and so they need a goal. So, like Amy in your Gutenberry story, it's the goal that Lisette has is to figure out the mystery around who wrote this piece of music. That's a concrete goal. In Peggy's cat story, it's about finding a new planet where they can live safely. Concrete goal. But they also need stuff too, and this is that other dimensional part of it. They need stuff. So what do they need? And this is that abstract kind of goal. Well, it's like, they're motivated by loyalty or commitment or honesty or justice or some, self-worth or security or something like that. That's what they need. So they want something and they need something. And all of our 3 viewpoint characters have this concrete goal, abstract goal, want something, need something. And so when we think about this stuff, we can create our characters and almost predict how they're going to behave when something happens to them. Okay. And that's why when we throw a big obstacle at them and someone is loyal and wants to rescue the princess and there's a dragon that gets in the way, what are they going to do? So this helps us plot. It helps our characters become real. Now, the second thing is the key traits. So all characters have good and bad. So all of them, the hero, the opposition, have both the good and the bad. And it's the contrast which makes them really interesting and memorable. This is why, a character like Tony Soprano is compelling, because the guy kills people. He's a bad guy. And yet, his loyalty and love of family and all of those sorts of things, that they're admirable traits. So it's kind of like, you're the audience and you get confused by this because bad guys are supposed to be all bad, but they're not. They're just regular people. So for each of your viewpoint characters, your lead, your helper, and your opposition, think of 2 or 3 strengths and 2 or 3 flaws. And they're going to have both. So even the bad guys, even Nick's murderer is going to have a strength and a flaw. Right? They all have these. So give some thought to them and jot them down. And then looking at the role in the story. Okay, so this is where it deviates just a little bit, because our hero has a different kind of goal than the opposition, for example. So let's look at what the lead's role in your story will be. So this is how they change, right? This is about character development. So when we talk about character development, we're really talking about how they change as the story progresses. So what belief must they abandon? If they're going to be successful in whatever their endeavor is, what must they abandon? For many of us, this might be some kind of limiting belief. Oh, I have a limiting belief when it comes to this or that, because I don't believe I'm worthy, or I don't believe this or that. That's something that they'll have to abandon in order to grow. So this is like our friend the Grinch, right? Who thinks that who realizes that actually Christmas isn't such a bad thing. So he abandons that belief, and his heart grows 3 times that day, or about 3 times as big that day. Or Ned, I don't know if that's his name. I think it's Ned, who actually says, "Okay, I will try your frickin' green eggs and ham already." Like, all right, I'm going to abandon that belief that anything new has to be bad. So I'll try the green eggs and ham and see what happens. Right? They have to give that up. So what does your hero have to abandon? What belief do they have to give up or let go of in order to grow? And this often happens around the beginning of the story, in those beginning sections, when there's an inciting incident, there's an obvious call to action, and our lead character goes, nope, they resist it. Nope, not for me. Someone else can do that. Not for me. Until finally they can't resist the call any longer. So like something even worse happens. So they have to give up the notion that they can't do it. And then the next question to think about is, how are they going to grow or change by the end of the story? How is that going to happen? How do they grow? And so, yes, it might be giving up, abandoning some belief. It might be gaining courage, something that they don't have. It might be coming to some kind of realization about life, about their life, and so on. So that's stuff to think about. Okay. So think about your main character right now. Is it clear what belief they're going to need to abandon and how they're going to grow in the story? Is it clear how that's going to work? Because these are things that are important to give some thought to at the beginning. Okay, so that's the role of in the story. The helper has a different role. So they have different goals. So when we talk about introducing a character, one of the main characters, and what their story goal is, this is what it comes down to. So the story goal is solving the crime, or solving the mystery, or finding the planet, or rescuing the friend. Whatever it might be, is that becomes that character's story goal. The helper has their own. So what lesson or support do they provide? So why are they there, in other words? Why are they there? So one of them, like sometimes our helpers are also romantic interests. So like Freddie to Jimmy, right? Freddie's not just a helper, but also has romantic designs on Jimmy, and so there's that kind of dynamic that's going on. So what kind of support are they providing? It's important to think about this. If for nothing else, it gives them a reason for being there. How do they influence the hero's transformation? So in the case of Obi-Wan, like he showed Luke the ways of the Force. Huge influence. Right? And the lesson is, the Force is there, and so on and so forth. Use the Force, Luke. All that stuff. The opposition is looking for other things too. How do they directly oppose or challenge the protagonist? What's the bad guy's role? What do they want? How do they do this? Why do they want to stop the hero from solving the crime? What's in it for them? What's their goal? And do they evolve, or do they remain unchanged? So, as an example, Lord Farquaad didn't change. He got eaten. That was it. Okay, he didn't change. He was the same. But other bad guys can change, and sometimes they do. Like even old Darth Vader has a tender moment there where he wants to see Luke, his son, and it's all like, we all get teary-eyed and start weeping, and so on. It's the father-son reunion. It's beautiful. So like sometimes the bad guy does change. Or what I find really compelling is the bad guy who doesn't believe they're evil at all. They're doing what they think is best for them and their people, whatever that is. So they are the most compelling, or at least it makes their motivations and their goals a bit ambiguous, and I find that really powerful. So there's a time and a place for certain stories where the hero is the hero and the bad guy is the bad guy. When we look at comic books, for example, they're often fairly flat characters, or at least traditionally they have been. So we expect that, but the ones that are really compelling are those that dance along the edge. Good people doing bad things, or bad people doing good things, and it's like it gets a little confusing and messed up. But that's part of the fun. That's what makes them compelling. So that's, yes, the role of the opposition is to challenge the hero and get in their way, and so they have their own motivations for doing these things. And so as a final consideration in all of this, when is the best time to think about these character development elements, things like their traits and their motivations and so on? So again, it's iterative. So I always start off, I get an idea for an interesting character but I build on them. They grow as I write and plot. So it's kind of like I get a model for someone, and I don't write 5 pages of backstory and physical description. I don't do that. I don't think it's always necessary. But I like to give them really strong traits. So if one of their strengths is loyalty, it's huge. It's like almost to uh, uh, almost to their detriment. That's what I meant to say. And if they've got a flaw, if lack of courage is their flaw, then it's huge. They struggle with it on a daily basis. Okay, so everything is amplified, and I just I find that works really well because then the motivations are clear, and their behavior becomes clear when something gets an obstacle gets in their way. So I like to start off sketching these things out, getting a good idea, clear idea of what their motivations are and what they want, a few traits, and then off they go. So when you have a story, oh yes, when to do this? When you have a story idea, begin sketching out the character. Modify as you plot if needed, modify as you write if needed, and modify as you revise. So there's constant there is this writing tension that we all encounter between trying to make the plot work, trying to make the characters work, trying to make the storylines work, and this is the writing tension that we all face. And so this is no different. There's constant little tweaks, and the fun part. I got to tell you, the most fun I've had in a long time is doing this final revision, because I get to tweak things, just little tweaks here and there that pull out a certain belief or behavior that I hadn't even thought about when I was writing. So it's kind of fun. So this is the kind of thing to be aware of. Like if we don't throw all kinds of crap at our characters, then it's easy for them to become invisible, and we lose the plot, as it were. If you're not writing that kind of specific formulaic story, we do want our characters to grow just like we do. Most of our readers, I think, are looking for people and characters they can relate to. Very few can relate to Jack Reacher. He's the guy's huge and all that stuff. But take any of the characters that we've written over the last few weeks here, and we can see where there are similarities, and so we want to see them grow. Like you take a character like Tazzy the dog, who's this kind of teenage, I can do anything, I'm invincible, I don't need to follow rules. Grown-ups are stupid and they do stupid things and school sucks, and like, okay, it's like, all right, but send them on their way and see what happens, see what they're made of and how they change, come back different. So that's what the journey is all about. That's what the quest is all about. So doing it over multiple stories, I think it takes a little bit of thought, but it can be done because characters just like us are constantly growing. They're constantly reacting to what bad guys do, and so learning about themselves as well. Yeah. All right. Okay. Any last thoughts on that?